Hi, everybody. I'm Jennifer Tryon, and the making continues here at Homemade. I am free motion quilting right now, and I'm using my regular sewing machine. I'm actually using the Janome 6650, and I have kind of turned it into a little long arm by putting it on my Cutie frame. And if you haven't seen this before, come pay attention to this, because this is going to be a little mind-blowing. If you've always wanted a long arm, or maybe you have rented one before at your local quilt shop, or maybe you've even sent your quilt to us to get long-armed, maybe you free motion on your tiny little machine and you're frustrated by it, but you love the idea of finishing your quilts or your projects yourself. This frame here allows you to essentially just use your regular machine, turn it sideways, lower the feed dogs, and then you can be free motioning yourself. I'm just doing a little, meander here, but you could do patterns, you can do pentagrams, you can do, some chalk dusting with some stencils. And it essentially allows you to use your regular sewing machine in this whole new way. And so you can see I'm just kind of making my way across this section of fabric. And I've rolled up the ends of my quilt and just attached them right to the frame here. And I thought I would bring you this today because it was one of those products when I first learned about it. You know how you sometimes have like a moment? This was one of them. Because, if you've tried free motion quilting on your own, on your machine, maybe you've got the gloves and the slippery mat for underneath, and you're still not totally loving how it turns out after you've spent all this time piecing it. You want to finish it yourself. Sometimes people feel like it's cheating if they're sending it off to the long armor. I don't blame them. And you want to do it yourself. This is a really easy way. It's a 4-foot frame, so you do need a 4-foot table, but it crunches right down. You can fit it under the bed. It's called the Cutie frame, and it's from the Grace Company, and we've got it as a special for you today. And it's regular $16.49. That's what we normally have it in the shop for. It's on Black Friday sale for normally if we were to put it on sale, we'd put it on sale for $11.49, but we've got it Black Friday for $9.99.99. Plus, you take another 10% off any machine, iron, or frames today. So we're just piling it up. And here to help us learn a little bit more about the Cutie frame is Jared Cahon from the Grace Company. He's joining us live from Red Deer. Hi, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks so much for inviting me again. I've done this with you once before in studio with you, and it was a blast. So I appreciate you inviting me back.
Yeah, well, last time it was great to have you here in person, but I love technology for this exact reason, because you didn't need to get on a flight to come here to take a look at my free motion quilting. You've got yours where you are. I've got mine where I am. And tell me a little bit about the Cutie. I kind of gave it a little run up. I'm going to continue sewing here. Maybe you can give me your little spiel. And then I want to tell you, I've got something I really do want to work on. So I'm going to take off the blank canvas in a minute. And I'm going to load up Amanda in the shop. This is her very favorite thing we got in for Christmas. It's these panels.
Ooh.
I mean, it's so cute. Amanda's always saying, eat my snow dust. I'm going to just try to show you in the overhead, eat my snow dust. It has all these cute little Santa pictures. And I love practicing free motioning on a panel, something that you don't have to piece. It's easy to put together, and you've got all these little parts that you can practice on. So once I do a little bit more on here, then I'm going to show you how I load this up. And we're going to do some free motioning for real so Amanda can get her panel downstairs. She loves it. So Jared, what do you love about the Cutie frame? What should we know?
So, a lot of the same things you mentioned. It is just a tabletop frame, so you don't have to dedicate a room or part of a room in your house. You can set it up when you need it and put it away when you don't. It also lets you do any size of project. I know that often salespeople will show it just with a little piece of fabric, but if you've got a great big piece of fabric, it hangs over the edge, and you can do great big quilts. There is some back and forth. There is some moving the fabric this way and that. It is just held on with some clips. So I can show you a little bit on mine while you're busy over there. That I've got these plastic clips. They're a polycarbide, so they're super tough. They don't break. And the fabric is already sandwiched, and we just lay it over top, and we clip it down, and then we're ready to quilt. We don't have to do a whole lot else to get ready. I do.
And I recognize that machine. I recognize that machine that you've got on your frame. I've got the Janome 6650. What do you have on yours?
This is the Janome 1600.
Nice. And this
so
is
just a nice,
yeah, straight stitch
machine. It's got a 9-inch throat, which is pretty typical. Like throat sizes for machines have gotten bigger and bigger over the years. And so 9 inches is very typical. There's a lot of machines that have a 9 or larger. And so you can make great big quilts, little quilts. A lot of people, I always say, oh, you can make big quilts with it. And then they ask, well, can I make small quilts? And sure you can. Just make sure you've got enough backing to reach across the frame. Yeah. And then you can do coasters if you want. You can do little earrings, whatever you want. Sure.
And so if you were doing something very small, like just some placemats or a dog mat or something that didn't reach across, yeah, just make sure you've got a little extra piece, but your little, fabric on top, you're just going to trim down anyway. So you can use any size on this. Just make sure you can tighten, get your clamps under that fabric, because you want to have it sort of nice and taut like this. Like, listen, kind of makes like a bit of a drumming sound. So you've got a nice flat, tight surface. The other thing I'll tell you is I didn't use any basting spray. Do you use basting spray when you're doing it?
Actually, yeah. It's nice. It's easy. On the bigger Grace frames, lots of them are roller frames, so there's no basting needed, as the 3 layers kind of laminate together as you advance the fabric. But I often don't want my stuff to shift around too much. So there's nothing wrong with it. You can use some basting spray. However you normally would baste it is how I would baste it. So that's usually the way I go. I'm a little different from you, though. You say you want the fabric to be really quite taut, and I go for quite a bit looser fabric. I want to see, right? I want to see the machine moving the fabric just a little bit as it's traveling underneath. Okay. The challenge is you can actually make the fabric really tight, and then when you put your stitches in and take it off the frame, it puckers. And I'd rather have the fabric a little loose than have it too tight and have that puckering experience. The same thing when you've got I've got the bungee clamps on the sides holding my fabric in place. You can get those really tight, and then after you've done stitching it, it can look really terrible. So make sure it's flat and even, less tight or taut, and more flat and even is the approach I take.
Okay, these are great tips. So like I mentioned before, if you're wondering, I know I see a couple people in the comments loving it. Thank you so much. Normally, if we put this on sale, it goes on sale for $11.49. It's regular $16.49. We've got it on Black Friday special today for $9.99.
That's a good
Jared,
price.
You told me that you wanted to say something about this.
Well, one, that is an amazing price. I love that. It's under $1,000. I wish I could buy one.
And another 10% off, because we've got 10% off any machines, any irons, or any of the Cutie frames today. Yeah.
Well, and because I think that's really cool, but I think we can make that a little better. So you've got it set up on your frame, and I just have one in the box. This is a Gracie laser.
The laser,
and that will be included for free.
No way!
The Cutie channel locks, which is just a kind of it's a brown box.
Come on. Okay,
but it
so
locks the different directions of travel. So you can lock it so it doesn't move side to side or it doesn't move forward and backward. And that will also be free. So you get both of them with the frame,
wow,
both of them with the frame for free
wow.
at
Okay,
$9.99.99 plus
plus the extra
10% off.
10 and the free channel locks and the free. Okay, so in case, that's amazing. Thank you, Jared, for offering that to the people who are tuning into to Homemade. Thank you. That's very generous of you guys to add the channel locks and the lasers. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Just in case you're wondering what's a channel lock, if you ever wanted to do straight line quilting, it's going to lock the wheels. So all you have to do is drag it across, and it's not going to go forward or back. Or if you wanted to go this way, it's going to prevent it from coming sideways so you get straight lines. So you lock that channel and bring it all the way across what you're doing. You can bring it down on the batting and then bring it all the way back over because it's going to be locked in place. That's amazing. And then the laser, I've got a laser here on the side of my frame. And if you were to, let's say, take a printout, like a pantograph of a design. So I've got one printed out here. And what you would do is you can change the handles to back handles on the Cutie. And all they do is they unscrew like this. So I'm going to do it and show you how easy. So they just pull right out like that. And then I'll just walk around to the other side here. And you can put them directly into the back of your machine. You don't have to use it this way, but it makes it nice and easy to see what's going on here. Ignore my cord. And then the laser just clips right onto your machine. And you turn it on. And then let me just get these into place here. So I'm just securing the handlebars. And then all you do is follow the design with the little laser. Now, the laser light is sort of right. I'm going to try to point it out so that you guys can see it on TV a little bit easier. Do you see the little laser light there?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. And so you just screw this into place. I can't believe you're giving everybody one of these. That's amazing. Thank you, Jared. So then I'm just going to follow that pattern. And then what ends up happening is that pattern then gets stitched into the front of your project. And then it's much more reminiscent of an edge-to-edge quilt design. And you're not maybe just left to your own devices and just meandering the way you might if you were just free motioning on your own, because it's much easier to follow a pattern if you're not, great at drawing or something like that. So that's very cool. That's very cool that you're including those. That's very cool.
I really like the laser stylus because it lets you get a very repeatable, very consistent design because you have something consistent to follow without having to take the hundreds of hours to master a new quilting design and all the time and work that is. So you can still get beautiful designs. They look great. If you've ever been to a quilt show, you can usually look. That's my favorite thing. I came to quilting from quilting, not from piecing. So I wish I could go to the quilt show and they turn all the quilts around so I can see the quilting on the back.
That's right.
But I love seeing the beautiful pantographs people use because you get that consistent repeat. But it still has your personal touch because you're never perfect. And that's the important thing to remember for me when I do a paper pantograph is don't stress. No one sees the paper. They only see the quilt.
True.
So if you're off the line a little bit, just go with it. It'll be fine.
Exactly. So when you can see the little laser dot, in case you're just tuning in, we can kind of, we'll give them a full shot. You can see the little laser dot, right? See it on my finger there? And so this is an example of a paper pantograph. And I just move the whole frame, like the track, and just follow that right along. And even if I'm a little off, it doesn't really matter because no one sees the outline anyway. They're just going to notice that there's this drawing on your quilt because it's going to be putting it in stitches. So the laser is very cool. You leave it attached to your frame, and you just turn it on and off just like that. Has a little battery inside, and off it goes. While you were talking there, Jared, I took my test sandwich quilt off the frame because I think it's kind of important for people to see how easy it is to load the frame. Because sometimes they go, okay, well, how's this going to work? How am I gonna, can I do a king size? Can I do a little coaster? What will fit? You know what I mean? So I thought I would just show people right from the beginning. I was gonna do this panel. If you weren't tuning in at the top of the hour here, I said this is Amanda's favorite thing that we're carrying in the shop this Christmas is this Santa panel. She loves this thing. She's all over it. And it's true. It's so cute. And it comes together so easy. You could put some borders around it, or you could have it just as a little throw, whatever you like. But I thought, okay, I'll load it up. And I was thinking of quilting it with Invisifil. And have you ever used Invisifil, Jared? Have you heard of this?
Okay. Invisifil has a clue in the name of what it does, but no, I've never used kind of an invisible thread. I've got some in my project thread. I like collecting interesting or uncommon quilting threads and seeing how good they are, seeing if they work.
Yeah, same. So Invisifil is a 100 weight thread, and I'm not sure if you can see on the overhead or not. It's very, very thin. It's 100 weight and very, very strong. It's like quilting with a piece of your hair. And so where invisible thread is kind of plasticky and not like and kind of springy, this is still real polyester thread.
Okay.
Made by Wonderfil. Anyway, I'm going to put it in here because it's perfect for when you want to see the stitching or the lines, but not necessarily your thread color. Because it's so thin, where's my snips? Because it's so thin, it sort of adopts the hue of whatever fabric is underneath it. And then that way, if you've got a bunch of different colors on whatever you're doing, you don't have any one color of thread stamping through all the other colors. So I've just threaded my machine like normal, because when you're using the Cutie frame, you're using your regular machine. You're just turning it this way. So that's very cool. And now I'm going to just take my entire sandwich here, and you can see I did leave. Jared, what do you suggest in terms of dimensions along the outside of what you're doing?
I usually recommend 4 to 6 inches.
Okay, 4 to 6 inches. I've got a little bit more on the sides because I just put a whole width of fabric on the back.
Yep.
And that's just basically so it's giving me a nice flat surface to quilt on. And when I'm starting, you can leave it so that just your backing and your batting are getting kind of hooped up. Do you call it hooped up or frame? What do you say that? What's the?
I'd use hooped or zoned.
Oh, zoned. I see. That's fancy. I've never heard that.
When we move to quilting with automation, it's called zone quilting. You zone by zone quilt.
Yes, that I've heard. Yes.
Yeah.
So we are going to do, well, maybe we should pick our zone and then we would know. Good call. Good call, Jared. Good thing you're here. Maybe we'll start with the tree then, because the middle, I always want to start with like the most fun thing. And I feel like the tree is really cool. So I'm going to move this up so that we've got some of the tree in my zone. Good call.
And then I usually plan where I want to quilt before I clip it together. Okay. Once you clip it in, then you're kind of you've decided where the machine's going to reach. So I usually will do exactly what you're doing. Trace over, see, is it going to reach all the spaces I want to quilt? And if it won't, because that tree is quite a tall tree, if you're trying to quilt the background, you could always turn the quilt sideways and then quilt half the tree at a time, and then come back and move the quilt to quilt the other half.
That's a great idea. Let's do it. Because then we are going to be able to get this zone much more in line with the space we have available. And you know, sometimes when people come in the shop and they get to try out the Cutie frame, that's one of the questions that they ask is, well, how do I move from place to place? Turning this around is the perfect idea for the shape of that zone. Mm-hmm. But when you're doing a size that is bigger than the frame, you just, you know, when you're done that zone, so to speak, you just kind of move it over and roll it back up again. And I'll show you here just how easy it kind of goes on the frame. Because if it was too hard, to be quite honest, I wouldn't be able to do it live if it was that hard, you know. So you can see I've got all this sort of left over here. And so the frame is equipped with these little bungee cables in behind. So you can see all you got to do is roll. And then it keeps it nice and neat. And then find the cable. There's one. And it just clips. And there's another one. And it just clips. And there's some little things to keep the cords out of the way.
Well, it's also to help keep those cords up. You have them hanging down a little. I usually will double them so that the tail, I can see the tail up above. Otherwise, that tail could come underneath and get sewn into your project.
Oh, gosh.
So usually I like seeing that tail on my...
So like this, right?
Yep. A lot more like that, because that helps us avoid sewing it in, which is a bad day because you got to rip the stitches out and ugh.
Yeah, that is true, and I will tell you that did happen downstairs. We did sew it in one time. But,
yep,
you know,
I've done it too.
Yep. So that is a good tip, to keep those tails out of harm's way. So just loop them up and out of
particularly on the back. On the front, meh. They're not as likely pulled underneath.
You'll see me. I'm switching this around. Have I got the front ones on the back here?
Yeah.
Does it really matter?
Nope.
I guess. Okay.
But the clips, they have this sort of shape to them, where this is where the bar goes inside this corrugated space. But there's also a channel on each one of them. And that channel is so that the clips that she's using can latch on somewhere. If they weren't there, they wouldn't have anywhere to latch on to.
Yes, exactly. And that's how you know they're facing the right direction, is when the little clip can fit in them there. Okay, so even though these ones are supposed to be on the front and these ones are supposed to be on the back,
it doesn't matter that much. The difference between... I'll show you guys.
Yeah.
So this is the side and the front have this sort of a look. They're corrugated.
Okay.
And what that lets you do is it lets you clip onto the rail and then turn it to tighten the fabric.
Oh, I didn't know about the tightening.
The back ones have this kind of weird
flatter
shape. It's kind of a square, but they're all smooth. And the idea is these clip on and they stay that way. There's no way to tighten them. They don't roll with across to tighten the fabric. They just kind of sit. So if you put your fabric on, like you can put them on however you want, like it's your stuff, but you can't put them on so these ones go on the back and they stay still. And then the ones in the front, that you can roll them forward and that will tighten the fabric. And you can get the fabric nice and tight.
And I'm just giving it a little roll because you had suggested having it a little bit looser maybe than I had it.
Yep.
So too loose? Can you tell just by looking? A little tighter?
Oh, it's a spectrum. It's a range. So as long as it's not too tight, then you're doing all right. I usually challenge people to try having their fabric just a little bit looser than they normally do. You don't need to go to full slack. But think about the fabric and where it's going to go. If it's going on a bed, it's mostly just kind of flat and even, so you can make the fabric that way. How did your zoning go? I can see a nice, beautiful strip.
Yeah, I've got a nice like landing strip here, And I'm going to just needle down right in the point of the star at the top. So I'm just going to needle down right there. And essentially what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my time and I'm going to just outline the tree.
Yep.
And I'm not going to worry too much if I'm not totally perfect. So I'm needle down. I'm going to bring that bottom thread up. And I know it's hard to see right under the needle, but the bottom thread just came up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm starting with the needle down, giving it a couple stitches in place. And then I am going to stop because I left the handlebars on the back. And I'm going to bring them back to the front. I was just moving the machine. The machine moves so easily on the track that you can literally just move the machine without even touching the handlebars. But it also reminds me that I didn't roll up the front either. So if you had a big king size or even more, again, just rolling it up and keeping it nice and neat and out of the way before you start.
And now you're using the start-stop on your machine, which has it so at a constant speed. You also could be using a foot control.
Yep.
And when I've done the kind of work you're looking to do, I'm not as confident a quilter as you are. So I'll usually use the foot control and just let it creep along nice and slow. Because I'm not in a rush. I'm making something beautiful. I don't need to get home by 5 and anything like that. It's I'm making something beautiful, so I want to take my time. It does make it a little easier when tracing around an object, unless you're skilled like Jennifer, to be able to take your time and slow down. And even you might decide you want to slow the speed of your machine down a little bit so it doesn't put in quite as many stitches. And this is custom quilting. This is making something that's one of a kind, special for someone. It's not I'm cranking out, mass producing these. I got to make 6 quilts a week or else. We're doing something really creative here.
And I'm just making my way and tracing the tree. I'm going to trace the ornament in the tree. And now you won't be able to see these stitches in the same way that you saw when I had like the purple thread on the white fabric. But the idea here is that you really don't see the stitches, that really what we're left with is the quilting.
I love that. I never thought of using like an invisible thread like this. Because a lot of people, I talk to a lot of people, and it's hard to pick what color of thread to put on the top of your quilt, because sometimes one thread looks great in this part of your quilt, but not in that. Sometimes it goes across even in a block, and that's a lot of swapping your thread to put in just the right color of thread for each part of your quilt. But where this lets you do a little bit of everything, I think that's a lot of fun.
Well, and I love that we're going from night sky here to the green of the tree to the yellow of the star. And I've got technically a white thread in there, but it's going to read as whatever color is behind it. Now, I'm now getting into the sky, and I'm going to turn up my speed a little bit.
Yeah, to cover more ground.
And give some wind around these snowflakes. Do a few hooks. And maybe I'll put in a few little stars. That's fun.
I love this. I gotta say, I'm super jealous right now because I love quilt panels, and man, I have not seen this panel yet. Now I gotta get one.
Well, the panel we've got on all the Christmas fabric is 25% off.
What?
And yep, 25% off, including this panel. So it was regular 16. Now the panel is on for 12, and free shipping over 150. So yeah, if you're looking for some cool Christmas stuff to do, this is an easy way to practice your free motion quilting. All right, so now I'm going down into where the presents are. You can see I'm just traveling down, and now I'm just going to trace around the presents. And I'm not too worried if they're like not perfectly traced. I'm going to actually give it a bow, like straight across the center. Come down around. Oh, this is fun. Because we're getting a design in the front of the quilt, but I'm not having to draw it myself. I'm literally just tracing what's already there. So that's pretty fun.
And it's going to look so good. Like those kind of details are really what helps quilting stand out. You know, often if you're sending something out to a long armor, they're going to do an edge to edge, or they're going to do an edge to edge, or they're going to do an edge to edge. And occasionally they'll do some custom quilting, but nothing like you'll do on your own quilt, right? It's your quilt. You've loved it. You've worked this project. Like, you've really spent the time on it. Even if it's just a panel, like if you're giving this to a friend, you're thinking about that friend while you're, I bet she'll really love the wind, or she's gonna love how the presents are all decorated and individualized. Like, this is so much fun. This is what gets me excited about quilting.
And now for the snow, I'm just gonna do some wavy lines going right across, and I'll come down, do some more wavy lines, just to give it a little bit of texture. And what's cool is that once I get to the borders, I'll trace out those too, so it doesn't really matter that this isn't going to meet all the way to the end. So I'm just being careful not to go over the Santa here. And I'm just doing the wavy lines just where the white is. And then I can trace out my Santa. I'm not breaking the thread at all. I'm just going from one thing to the next thing.
Mm-hmm. And this is
a little outline.
And this is that great thread choice. Like, you can go from one thing to the next thing to the next thing without having to stop and put in a new color and stop and put in a new color. You just get to do whatever you want. Man, I'm gonna have to find some of this thread. I gotta find this panel. I thought I was supposed to be helping you talk about the Cutie frame, and now I got a shopping list.
Yeah, I know. It's a slippery slope, Jared. We're always watching each other's stuff and going like, ooh, I need that. Honestly, but that's the fun of it. Like, being able to learn about new things and admire each other's work. Like, I love it. Let's give the beard like a little extra texture. I'm going to give him some waves in his beard. Oh my gosh, that's so cute. Okay, I'm like actually really in the zone here. I probably should be like paying more attention to you guys. Look, I'm just like swirling around his cuffs on his sleeve, like giving him like a furry like curl. Oh, I love it.
Well, while Jennifer's quilting, if you guys have questions, go ahead and put them in the comments. And when she's gotten a little less in the zone, we'll go over some of the comments together and see if we can answer some of your questions. So Definitely. Go ahead and start filling that up with questions. If there's something you're excited about, or something you want us to show you that we haven't shown you yet, we're happy to cover the material for you. Well, and Jen's already covering the material.
Yeah. One thing I'm noticing everyone always asks is, what machines can be used on the Cutie frame? Like, what size, what brand? That's like a number one question that we get, Jared.
Well, I know I get that question a lot, and the answer is less satisfying than I think people would like, because whatever, like, machines are not so specific. So if are you already quilting on your machine? Is kind of the question I usually ask. Do you have a free motion foot? Can you lower the feed dogs? And then, is it like a normal size machine? Is it a ginormous industrial machine? If it's just a regular machine, like what you have at home, and you're already quilting on it, you can probably use it on the Cutie frame. So like I like machines that have about a 9-inch throat, not because I'm endorsed by brands to say that, but because I don't think you're going to have a lot of fun if you use a machine that's only got like a 6-inch throat. Not that it won't work, but just it's not as much fun, because like on this machine, the needle, the measurement is from the needle to the back of the machine. That's what the 9 inches is. but the actual foot that is here, this foot takes up half inch, 3/4 of an inch. The rail takes up some space. The fabric will take up a little space. So you don't quilt to 9 inches. You're probably starting at like 7-ish. And if you're doing a big project, that's a lot of work. You're going to lose a lot of fabric over time, or a lot of space over time as your quilt grows. So it's more a matter of what machine do you have, and it'll work.
And I've got,
my machine does not. Go ahead, Jen.
No, I was going to say, I've got about, I've got a decent sized throat space here. This I would say is almost 10 inches of throat space on the 6650. And I'm hitting the frame. I've got about 2 fingers here that accommodates the machine and about 2 fingers here. So that gives me about 6-7 inches of workable free motion space.
Yep.
And, sometimes you could put a little marker of chalk so not to go, further than that. Because when I'm doing my little
or pin
swirling lines here, I want to know, don't end up hitting the edge. I want to move that over so I can finish, on this side.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know if you can tell here if we're looking at the overhead, like the outline on some of the stuff here. I know we can kind of zoom in. If we zoom into the presents and a little bit here, you may be able to see a bit of that stitching without seeing the real thread, especially kind of right in this area. Isn't it just so cool? The thread's not overwhelming. It's just enough. And isn't that kind of cool to be able to trace this stuff out and have it not be like a huge stamp of color
and texture?
Yeah, you can see there I kind of outlined the bows, and and I outlined the presents, and we're kind of coming down. So I'm going to keep going here. Let's go through the price. So normally $16.49 is what the Cutie frame retails for. When the Grace Company has a special, we can put it on for $11.50. Like I think it's $11.49 normally if it was to go on sale. But we've got it today for $999.99. So just under $1,000. And the Black Friday special from Homemade is that you take another 10% off of any machines, irons, or the Cutie frame today. So if you're ordering it today, you can take another 10% off. So that's taking almost $100 off again. And Jared surprised us with a gift for you guys.
Yep, the Gracie laser and the Cutie channel locks. Together, they're worth about $150-ish. I'd have to look at the numbers, but and they are free when you purchase the Cutie tabletop. So go ahead and get yours now. A lovely way to get started. Could be top accessory people get when they get their Cutie frame is usually the Gracie laser and Cutie channel lock. So we're happy to be able to include this for Jennifer at Homemade.
Oh, this is so generous of you. So if you're ordering today, you're taking 10% off the $999 price point, and plus you're getting the free channel locks and a free laser. So this is amazing. Thank you so much for letting us do that. We've got a little bit of time left. So Jared, let's go through a couple of questions. First, what's the number one question you always get asked about the Cutie frame?
The number one question I usually get is already what machines work with it. And then the second question is, what does it really fit on a table? Like what size of table does it fit on? And so I've got mine on a Lifetime 4-foot by 2-foot table. And that's just because I don't leave it set up all the time. I take the frame down and I take the table down, and I don't have anything sitting around. Although it fits on a lot of dining room tables, some big coffee tables, and it doesn't have to, like if your table is just a little small, if it's like a 45-inch table, it'll still work. The way the machine doesn't go off the side of the frame, and so it doesn't fall over. And again, the table doesn't even have to be that wide, so it just works really nicely on almost all the tables I've encountered, even like banquet tables and dining tables and cutting tables and all kinds of tables.
I've got it on my high countertop. So what I've got here is like 36-inch by, now it goes longer, but you only need 4 feet, but exactly 30, it measures 36 inches here, and it's perfect. I just use an inexpensive IKEA table downstairs in the shop, and it fits exactly on it, and we run it all the time. People come into the shop and try it.
Yep.
If you're local near Kingston, Ontario, you can come on in and give the Cutie frame a try, but you're going to want to order it. And if you are local, then you can come on in and we'll give you a little lesson on how to get things set up. But I know you're going to love it. It's really easy to use. The main thing being that you secure your quilt and you just move it along as you go. So I'm almost done this section here. For anyone that's just tuning in, I'm doing this, I'm free motioning this panel on the Cutie frame. And the Cutie frame is made by the Grace Company. And Jared is here with us live for our special. And he's coming to us from Red Deer, Alberta. So thank you so much for being here. And we're talking about how we can use our regular home sewing machine in this new way. I'm using the Janome 6650 and I've just turned it on its side and I've put it up on the frame. So if I were to take this off, you'd be able to see exactly how the machine fits on the frame. So I'll take off my nice panel here because I'm ready to kind of move it over anyway, just in case people are tuning in late and you can get a look at how easy it comes off. You've got these clamps that come with the machine. And so you can put virtually any domestic sewing machine that has a decent enough throat space on the frame. You just want to make sure that, there we go. Lots of people have 2 machines or their old machine. We hear people, I got a new machine. Maybe you're getting a new machine for Christmas. And then your old machine can be what you leave up on the Cutie frame. And so you're not having to take it on and off. But the taking it on and off is actually not that big a deal. So I'm going to show you. I took the quilt off. You slide off the end so that you can take this bar off. And you can see how nice and loose and smooth the track is. And I'm just going to come around and get it from the others. Well, I can do it from here. And then you can just lift your machine right off. So you can see I'm using the Janome 6650. It's still plugged in here. I'm just going to turn it off. And so lots of people will recognize this machine. We've had it on the shopping channel. I have it in the shop. This is a great everyday machine. It's got decent throat space, great price point. It's another 10% off today. So retails for this machine $16.49. So you'll take another 10% off today. But it's a great machine to go on the Cutie frame. But whatever machine you have at home, as long as you can free motion quilt on it, you can use it on the frame. The more throat space you have, the more room you'll have to move, which is, ideal. But as long as you can free motion, you can use whatever machine on this frame, right, Jared?
That's right. And of course, like if you were really nervous or worried about it, we can give you the dimensions of the platform that the machine sits on to make sure your machine isn't too big. Although your machine doesn't have to sit all on the tray. You can have a lot of machines, particularly like great big machines. They'll hang off the front or the back a little bit, and it can even hang off the sides a little bit, as long as most of the machine is able to sit on the tray.
The weight is evenly distributed. There are 2 clamps that stick in here to secure your machine. I just took, but the clamps come off. And because the machine is so heavy and everything is so stable, sometimes I use it with the clamps, sometimes I don't. I got to be totally honest. I'm taking it like up and down all the time. So hopefully that actually just tells you how secure your machine is on here, that I'm not even using the full safety clamps. I probably should be. I've also had the big Janome M7 or the new M8 with the stitch regulator on this machine, and using the stitch regulator brilliant, because you really are turning that machine, and you've got 13 inches of throat space there when you're using the stitch regulator. Grace Company also sells a stitch regulator, and you can put it on the front of your machine. So if your machine is one like this, that there's no stitch regulator option, just send us an email at info@homemade.ca, and we can tell you about the stitch regulator. It's also about $1,000. And again, extra 10% off today, but just send us an email and we can get you hooked up if you would like the stitch regulator for this as well. Because what it does is it makes sure that your stitches are all super even, and no matter what speed, like if you're whipping around like this, that you don't get a big long stitch. And it allows you to not have to use the foot pedal, and you've got a little stop and start control, and it'll just hook right onto your clamps here.
Yeah.
You know, Jared, one of the other things that I love that you include in the box is an extension cord for the foot pedal. That was smart.
Yeah.
You got one?
So that's what I've got. I've got my foot pedal for my my machine, and it's actually a pretty decent foot pedal. And then I've got this long, I don't know, it's probably 4 foot long extension cord, and it's got one plug that the foot pedal plugs into, and one part that plugs into the machine. So it lets you quilt from standing a little more. The lovely people who made your machine they were smart. They went, hey, they're going to use this machine in exactly this way. They're going to sit down at a table, and it's going to sit this direction, and we're going to make the cord just long enough. And then we go ahead and do something silly like turn it sideways and put it on a frame. And a lot of people want to quilt stand up. And so it comes with, I believe there's 5 different cables, extension cables for a variety of machines. Not every single machine gets one, but a lot of machines do. And it's kind of a nice to have. It's not required, but if you have one, why not use it?
Yeah, the Janome ones fit. The only one I knew in the shop that didn't fit was, I think it was a FAF. There's a couple models, but for the most part, it'll extend your foot pedal, and that way you can bring it right around the front. And I'm standing to use it here because I have this counter, but you know, whatever height you're at, if you want to sit at a chair and do this because you don't want to be standing for the hours it's going to take to quilt something, you know, pretty substantial, then you just can put it on a regular table. You have, you know, the ability to, you know, make this a little bit higher or a little bit lower. And yeah, just sit and comfortably quilt. You could bring a stool. You don't have to be standing to do it, which is really, really great. Jared, any final little words of wisdom when it comes to the Cutie here?
The big thing is, don't be scared. Like it's a tool, but you're using your machine, so it's like adding a quilting table or an extension table to your machine. It's just a new tool for your machine, so you don't have to worry. And the less you worry about it, the more you're going to just have fun. Quilting is
definitely.
I know. I end up talking to a lot of business owners, so quilting is part of their business. But the quilters I talk to are just doing it for fun. They're not charging people for their quilting. They're just making beautiful things for their friends and their family. And that sounds like something that should be fun. So just relax, try different things. Have a piece of fabric like Jen has, where you can just kind of play and doodle and see what you like. And the other option, get some panels and quilt up some panels. And those are so easy and so fun. And you don't have to stress about that quilting. You know, often we get really worked up about things, especially as we head towards the holiday season. But we should have a good time in life, and quilting is a lovely hobby, and we should have a good time at it.
And we do want to not worry too much about it being totally perfect. I know people, especially if they're giving it as a gift, they want it to be perfect. So until you get your sea legs with your Cutie, do what I'm doing here, which is just take a quilt sandwich. So I've got scrap fabric on the back. some quilt batting, and you'll notice, Jared, and this is a tip, if you're ever wanting to practice on a quilt sandwich, and you don't want to have to keep sandwiching it over and over, we do this on the long arm all the time when we're practicing, is can you see what I've done here? I've got this fabric here that's already filled with with practice, and then I'm just putting another piece over top. So I'm not using a new quilt sandwich every time. I'm just using a new piece of top fabric, because this backing and this batting is still good. You can go through this like tons of layers. These machines are meant to do tons of layers. So that's just a little tip. When you get this home and you're wanting to practice, you're not going to have to practice on, 20 quilt sandwiches. You can use the one and just throw some more scraps over top of it and, practice your little heart out.
I wish I appreciate the tip, but I wish I'd had that tip 8 years ago. What a way to save some money and still get the practice in. Because often when I got started, it was always new quilt sandwich, quilted up, new quilt sandwich, quilted up. So what a fun tip.
You can see we've quilted on this one. You can see I've got people's name. There's Linda's name, all in here, because we practice on this one all the time. And then just bring a new, like I had the panel, if you were watching earlier, that Christmas panel. So if you're just tuning in, I'm just putting this one back on, and you can see it all clips to the frame to keep it nice and neat and secure while you're quilting. And it couldn't be easier really to load and unload. You can see if you needed to move your quilt over, put this one on backwards, but you can see, just take it off and put it back on. If you needed to move your quilt over because you were finished with a section, how quickly you can do that. Because I've had this one on when we started, I unloaded it to put the panel on, did the whole panel, and now I've loaded this one back up, and we've been talking for 54 minutes. So that's, it's not hard to load and unload. And then when you're ready to quilt, you're just in free motion mode, and you are kind of just off to the races. Make sure you've lowered your feed dogs, and you just make your way around the quilt. And you can just be doing designs. It doesn't have to be anything super fancy. So, Jared, I appreciate you being here, and especially for bringing everybody the free channel locks and the free laser. That was honestly very generous of you. I really appreciate you doing that for everybody. That's amazing. So if you're ordering today, we've got the frame, the Cutie frame on for $9.99, and you can take another 10% off because it's 10% off and for Black Friday, any machines, irons, or frames. So it's another 10% off the $9.99. Plus, Jared is throwing in the free laser and the free lasers and the free channel locks. Thank you for that. Jared, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's been a blast. Hopefully a lot of your customers will be doing the free channel locks and free Gracie laser, and they'll get to try the Cutie frame.
It's going to be our New Year's resolution to finish more of our own quilts in 2024.
Yes, definitely. Amen.
Yeah, we like that. We like finishing what we've started, not just sitting around with a bunch of quilt tops. This is going to help you get it done. Jared, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jen.
All right. Okay, you guys, the crafting is going to continue. We'll see you back here at the top of the hour. Bye, everybody.